Good morning everyone and welcome to our weekly watch list. Thanks to everyone who sent through all the pairs that they are looking at. It's always great to see what you're looking at. Hopefully provide a bit of useful commentary. Maybe we can put a few extra pairs on our watch list of trades that subscribers are looking at, and definitely ones that I'm interested in too. So we've had some nice moves over the last few days, a couple of weeks on a couple of pairs. I've had some really great moves. So I think definitely our patience is paying off. I think some setups are really looking good at the moment. So hopefully it won't be long before we get a couple of new juicy looking trades. So what I've done is I've highlighted the pairs that I'm interested in and also the ones that I've been asked about, and I'm going to go through them sort of one after the other in this video. I'll try and do it as briefly as possible to stop this video from becoming too long. So let's get to it. The first that I'm going to have a look at is actually gold. And if you remember correctly, we were looking at this big bullish move over a couple of weeks ago, and then price sort of squeezed into this triangle or wedge, however you want to look at it, and I was saying, well, I think we're probably going to get a break to the upside, and I think price is going to carry on, and we eventually got that. And a couple of subscribers have highlighted this sort of pin bar looking setup that printed on Friday as a potential sell, and I'm not interested in that, and let me show you why. The first reason is that I think the zone is a little bit higher. So I've got it drawn here at about 1283. You could call it anywhere between sort of 1283 and 1285. And the high I've got here is at about 1280. So that's another sort of $5–6 that I think price needs to sort of push up to really test this zone before I'd be interested in taking a short, given how strong this bullish push is. The other reason why I'm not interested in it is because of the last 2 days. Now these two candles represent yesterday. This one here is just a Sunday candle, so these two together are Monday. This one is Tuesday so far, so we obviously don't have a lot of information there. But these two candles together have really, they haven't shown their hand that we're going to see any sort of weakness in price. What I think is more likely going to happen is we're going to see a retest of this zone before any potential fall, given that this retest here is just not good enough and the price has been creeping up. Now, obviously, it is good to see prices slowing at least, if we are going to get some sort of turnaround. For example, if I contrast it, let's have a quick look at this chart. Where's a good example? Alright, here's a nice move. So you can see price sort of falling here, and you see how price is slowing down. You can see we're not getting closes right down the lows. The candles are a lot smaller, etc., etc. As price gets down to the zone, then boom, we get this big bullish candle and price moves up. Contrast that with something like with this perhaps. Alright, so we've got this big bullish move up, another bullish move up. Yes, we paused a little bit there, but you can see we pushed right through the zone. So if you were taking some sort of blind entry short here, you were probably stopped out. So just keep that in mind. It's always important to see price slow down when it approaches a zone if you are looking to take a reversal. It is slowing down here, so that is a point for the reversal, but I think the bigger picture for me is that little pin bar is just not good enough for me to say that this up move has been halted. I want to see a sort of better retest of that zone, and then potentially a short trade. Let's move on. Having a look at the Aussie dollar daily. So if you remember correctly, I think it was last week, we said that potentially we may have a sell off the bottom of this big bully. Now we never had a trade, so a lot of subscribers, or a number of subscribers, get disappointed where we have such a good looking setup but we don't sell. But for me, a key sort of component of taking a sell trade is that price needs to be moving down, and the opposite is true for taking a buy trade, right? I only want to buy when price is moving up. I can't control the market any more than you can. So once we had this fantastic looking signal print, we watched it, and Monday kind of looked alright. It looked like we may get a nice little inside candle sort of, and potentially a sell below there. Then we watched sort of Tuesday, and Tuesday rushed up, closed right up against the zone here, and that was good enough for me to say, well, I don't think we're going to get a sell trade there. I'm not interested in hanging my hat on that. And you can see sort of later on in the week, price just blasted through that zone, and it took out this high. If you'd had some sort of sell here, you would have been, you obviously wouldn't have been stopped out. And this is another good reason why I am a big fan of the sell stop. So any sell order that would have been there would never have been triggered, whereas a limit order on some sort of retrace would have been triggered. Price is going in the wrong direction, and you would have been stopped out. Now I've brought this pair up, or I've highlighted it, because I think we're at quite an interesting zone. We've blasted right past these zones here. Right, this is at the sort of 0.7330, somewhere around there, and we're up against this zone here, 74.20, I guess you could call it that, and I think we're at an excellent spot for a reversal. Failing that, we may get up to 76.20, and why I like this is that the sort of move up here, this sort of recent blast here. Yes, it has been a very bullish move, but I think it's you know, I don't believe at this stage it's part of a longer term reversal. Only if we start sort of closing above, if I switch to this sort of wider picture, if we start closing above this zone, would I think that the sort of longer term downtrend is no longer on the table. So I think we're in an interesting, very interesting spot here. I'm very interested to see how today closes the next couple of days, and we could get a very nice sell on the Aussie dollar. Don't have a setup just yet, but I think it could be quite interesting. Then a pair that one of our subscribers sent through, and I just wanted to show everyone this. It's sort of on a weekly chart, and there's a couple of extra zones here. Let's have a quick look at it. So this is the pound dollar weekly. Now what you've got here is you've got quite an interesting sort of thing. So price has fallen, and there's only sort of one zone right now that I'm particularly interested in, and it's this zone here. All right, it's the one, call it 142, 142.30. It doesn't really matter on a weekly chart. It's all the same zone. Now, what happened? We had this big fall, all right, 2 weeks ago. It looked like price was going to continue lower. And then last week, price dipped lower, so it would have taken out a whole lot of sort of stops down there and then rocketed right back up, and it's closed right up on this zone. Now, the challenge that I have with taking a buy here, because if you were to add these two candles together in your mind, all right, what you're going to end up with is an incredible pin bar, aren't you? You've got an open here, you've got a close here, and you've got this long, long, long wick. All right. Now, if that candle had printed as a single candle formation, you know, a lot of traders would be all over it as a fantastic buy, and I still think there is definitely buying potential here, but for me, not on the weekly. And the reason for that is, if you have a look at this zone, all right, and we can switch to a sort of a line chart. It's always a little bit easier to see. You know, if you have a look at it here, where price bounced, all right, and you can see this point over here, where this candle would have closed, or at least where this one did close, and if you added these two together, where this pin bar closed, for me is below the zone. Now that's a bit of a worry to me, all right. We may have just seen some sort of retrace to the zone, and we may simply push off and go down. So to the trader who highlighted this on the weekly time frame, great thinking. It's definitely nothing wrong with adding candles together in your mind. I know a lot of traders use EAs to do it, to look for some sort of price action on there to get a really great pin bar. Definitely. Problem for me is the placement. I'm not happy with the placement. You know, we've been trading it on the weekly high low on the 4 hour, and we've had a really nice entry. I'm going to stick to that. You know, I can show you, apologies, I can show you here that I believe that, yep, that was our 4 hour entry this week. So we're in a nice long position here off these highs. And I think what we're going to do is look at stacking this position if we get another bullish candle. You can see we are sort of on top of this zone right now. This structure looks quite bullish. I'm happy to continue with this market on the 4 hour. The euro pound is one that we highlighted yesterday as part of the drop. This trade's actually looking better and better. I know it's not really going anywhere, but that's fantastic. You can see a couple of days, we've seen a few days of buying pressure that have come right back down again. A few things have to happen. You know, either we get a break below this zone and some sort of retouch and sell, or we see price come up, retouch this zone here, 78, or even potentially the trend line and print some sort of exhaustion candle. So we need confirmation that it's ready to go. I'm not blindly going to hop into an entry and hope it goes down. Once again, I want to see price going down, but you know, it looks great. You know, potential short all the way down to maybe the 71 level or even 70, taking profit the whole way down. So it looks good. Very interested. Another trade that I wanted to highlight and just sort of show you the comparison is this is the pound Swiss weekly. So I hope you can see the similarities between this and the pound. You've got this big bearish drop, you've got this bullish candle, rockets up. My challenge is if you switch to a line chart and you can see where this zone is, right, and I've defined it by there, and potentially, you know, you even say it's a bit higher, you say it includes both of these touches. It doesn't really matter at this stage. The problem that you have is that once again your pin bar, the head of the pin bar is below the zone. So you can see prices sort of come up here. Have we seen the high of the week already? And is price going to sort of fall down again? And you do tend to get these patterns. Let's say we're in a downtrend. You do, and you know, when it consolidates, you get this sort of down, up, down, up, down, up, and then price eventually continues on. So this is definitely not good enough for me to take a buy, and I hope everyone can see why I have a challenge with that. Euro yen, I wanted to show this trade very, very briefly. This may be one that we're going to have a look at. We've had this down move, we've had a low, we've had a lower low, clearing out those highs, those lows, and then prices obviously rocketed back up here. Now this pin bar that printed yesterday was very, very interesting, and it may have been good enough for a buy signal on its own. However, what we've seen today is prices come down again and has tested the lows. Now we don't have a new lower low, but I'm not a big fan of double pin bars. I want to see one pin bar clearly engulf the other one. So if we get a nice low here today and then price comes up and wicks back up and close higher than these highs, I think we have an excellent potential buying opportunity on our hands. Let's see where we go. The alternative, of course, is if we see price close below this pin bar, we may have a nice short, which we will cover in the very next chart, believe it or not. This is the pound yen. So the pound yen has had this nice big fall, and you can see on some sort of a daily time frame here, we've had this bounce off this zone, and you could say potentially we've had some sort of double bounce. You know, it would have been nicer to have seen price sort of I guess spend more time away from the zone before bouncing. Those bounces are really close together. You know, you can see, I suppose it's pretty obvious that this is a similar setup to the euro yen. The challenge, of course, is that this pin bar is below the zone. Okay, so if you were to take a buy, you've still got to bank on the fact that it's going to break through the zone, and I'm not willing to put money on that. I'm in fact much more interested in a sell, and this is how it may look. If we were to get a close today below the low of this pin bar, we would end up with quite a nice bend in the market, all right, and we would also clear out these lows, giving us a nice short back down to this zone. So that could be a nice short trade. Let's have a look at it. Let's see where we go. It's obviously quite early on in the day, so we've still got a lot of trading to go before we get there, but definitely a very nice looking chart. The Euro Aussie was one that was sent through, you know, as kind of a breakout. So I guess we've broken below this 149 zone. You can see we've cleared down here and we've come back up and retested it. Now, the challenge, of course, if you're looking for a short trade, is either you're going to just sell at this sort of zone and hope price goes down to get some sort of decent risk to reward, or you've got to drop to a lower time frame. All right, and you can definitely do that. What we've seen is we've seen this drop, and we're sort of coming up on the 4 hour, and what we need to do is we need to see price to sort of give us some sort of exhaustion candle. Nothing that we saw here was really good enough at this stage. The challenge on daily, of course, is if you were to just say, all right, well, it's broken through this zone and I'm going to sell below this low, you're right up against this zone here, which you know, I had a quick look at this chart, and you can see it's quite an important zone. There, not so much, but you can see how it held price here, held price there, and it was major resistance up here. So I'm not willing to blindly sell below the low of yesterday's candle and say, you know, price is definitely going to go lower. However, on a 4 hour time frame, perhaps we have something there. Let's watch it. Alright, the Aussie yen is a very interesting pair, and I'm going to sort of compare this with the New Zealand yen. Why I like this, and I think we may get a trade on it quite soon. We've got this box that formed on the 4 hour. You can see it's got nice clean touches on the bottom, nice clean touches on the top. We broke out, and it looks like we're coming back and retesting it. We could get an absolute fantastic buy trade off here. All right, so what happens, we want to see price drop back down to the edge of this box. It's at the 82 zone. Even it's not that far away. It may take a day or two to get there, who knows. We could see price drop down below here and get a nice bullish bounce. And the beautiful thing about a trade like that is your very first target is simply at these highs. So you can imagine if we get some sort of nice bullish candle, we may end up with a sort of a 70-80 pip stop and a 250 pip target, depending obviously on what we see here. So this one is one of my favorites, definitely on my watch list. And I'm going to skip these and have a quick look at the New Zealand yen. Similar kind of setup. However, the top of the box here is definitely not as well defined. So you could define the box as being over here, right, with these touches. Okay, or you could define the top of the box as being over here. Now the problem then is you've obviously reached the top of the box, and now you would expect to see some sort of bullish bounce. So we're going to watch it. My challenge with this is I think this zone is more important. Right, you can see it provided resistance on the way up. Price eventually came through. Even when it came through, it retested it. That's the most recent price action. Here on the way sort of up, you may look at this as some sort of blow off top, you know, and then we've had this bounce. So I think it's about I guess you can call it the 76 zone is more important in my opinion. However, let's watch it. So, you know, if we get a bounce here, potentially there's a sell. I think it has a little bit further to go. The challenge, of course, with a trade like this is even if you were to take a buy, you then have to contend with this zone, 76.40. You know, if we get a nice bounce off here, is it going to go much higher than there? Who knows? So let's see what we get. Quick look at the Aussie Swiss, same kind of thing. I think it's we're seeing a lot of the similar kind of stuff on the Aussie pairs. We've had this breakthrough of sort of this zone. Price is coming down. If we get a nice retest up here, we can sell back up again. So I'm not going to go too much into that. What I'm looking for is a drop down to 72.75 and then a potential buy. The Euro New Zealand was another pair that was sent through. And I think what is being considered is basically this break of the 162 zone. I guess you could potentially draw it down there, and you say, well, I've got these highs here, and sort of this is how you're defining a zone, and I can definitely understand that. Again, then what we're doing is we're on sort of a 4-hour time frame. So great, we've had this breakdown, prices has collapsed down, we've had quite a bullish push up now. So what we need to see is some sort of exhaustion. So probably a little bit easier to trade than the Euro Aussie, the Euro New Zealand, maybe a simpler trade. Let's watch it. Let's see what we get. And lastly, I'm going to have a quick look at the pound CAD weekly. So I've actually drawn a different chart here just with simpler zones. We had this big fall a couple of weeks ago. Yesterday came back up, retested this zone, couldn't get anywhere. So that suggests further downside. Now, of course, selling below these sort of lows, and if you were to put your stop below this high, you've got 1,000 pip stop loss, and I'm not really interested in that. We'd have to see if we can get some sort of tighter entry. I think it depends obviously on where our target is. The challenge, of course, is that you have major support here. All right, you've got these lows here, and you've also got this sort of boxed formation here. You've got these lows, these highs. So this is a major zone. You'd have to ignore this zone. All right, I've got it drawn at about 185.60, and it sort of picks up these highs. You'd probably have to ignore this zone if we were to sell, because you're saying, well, we're right there, right? We're 100 pips from there, so we're gonna have to ignore that one and potentially go for that one. So we've got a 500 pip target, 1,000 pip stop loss. Let's see if we can look for a sort of a tighter entry. Perhaps there's a few different ways of playing it, but technically I think the setup looks great. I think there's definitely more downside. Those are the main pairs that I'm looking at right now. The other is potentially the dollar Singapore. You can see we've had this break of this trend line. This is the weekly time frame. Quite interested on some sort of daily trade if we get price to come up here, wick into it, and collapse. Even a 4-hour trade is potentially possible. We may get a kind of a buy here and just trade it up to this zone, but I'm far more interested in the sell, right? So we've had this break, prices coming up and retesting. Some sort of exhaustion here gives us a nice easy target with the sort of prevailing trend at the moment. Any questions, please do send them through.